Any moments of regrets?
I'm sure, plenty.
Oh,
Plenty of moments of regret. I should have done that. I didn't do it. I
correct.
lost that opportunity. Happened. But at the same time, you also have to say, let's move on.
Being sensitive,
Being sensitive to culture, being sensitive to people,
being mindful.
and mindfulness. If I may call it my secret of success, it would be that I learned to work following their culture.
Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you on Emotionally Yours with Pratik. With me, I have got somebody who's very special, renowned person in the finance industry, has been there in corporates, and a dear friend of mine, Porus Doctor, who's going to talk about how his journey, his corporate journey has been, and how he's tried overcoming most of the emotional areas in his life. So, a very warm welcome to you, Porus.
Thank you, Pratik.
Thank you. So, Porus, first things first. As you know that this podcast is all about emotions, and it's part of our emotional literacy drive, where we talk about mission 1 million emotionally literate Indians by 2035. And as you rightly said, that it won't take us that far. We are already halfway through, 500,000 with good wishes from people like you. Would like to understand overall what emotions and what emotional journey really means to you.
Sure. So I'll start off with my little bit of background about my early childhood.
Sure.
So my father was in the Indian Army,
Okay.
and he was killed in the 65 war when I was just about 2 years old.
Okay.
So my mom brought me up both as mother and father, and that's how our journey started. So I guess from an emotional perspective, every time I do reflect on my childhood, I do get moved and emotional.
True.
It's a long journey that just crossed 60 now. Right from childhood, I think I started off going to boarding school. Spent 10 years in Lovedale in Ooty in a boarding school. Came back to Pune and joined Wadia College, Wadia College. Really, I think my life really flourished from that point onwards. Got involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. I tried to make the most of the opportunities I had with one single focus that I have to do well in life to
Okay.
succeed. Yep. But I also liked sport. I liked intellectual thinking. Used to play a lot of chess in those days. So a lot of good opportunities, and the college gave us a lot of opportunity, and we took it. So one lesson in life that I learned very early on is always take the opportunities you are given, because opportunities are never lost. Someone else will get it.
Awesome. So you have to be in the right state of mind to look at that opportunity and then grab it.
Absolutely. And never look back.
And never look back.
Never look back. Once you take something on, take it on, welcome it with open arms, and just go ahead.
Great.
Run with it.
So right from childhood, you have described your career so far, on till the time you were in college. And one very important thing that you've just mentioned, there was something, I wouldn't call it as pressure, but some kind of a self-inflicted pressure in terms of succeeding in life and doing well in life.
Absolutely.
During that time.
Absolutely, because I was on a scholarship, and the one condition of that scholarship was I had to get a certain percentage to keep getting that scholarship.
Okay.
So therefore, education depended a lot on
doing
well. So yes, there was self-inflicted as well as
the financial
other pressures
right.
to make sure that you keep doing what you have to do in terms of achieving that one focus goal, which is to do well in education.
So post-education, then post-Vadias, what exactly
So
happened?
on the day I left college, which was the final exam of TY-BCom, as I remember, I went and joined A.F. Ferguson, which is a well-known chartered accountancy firm in those days, probably one of the biggest at that time. I just went for an interview, got selected, and my boss said, "You're not going back home. Come to the office now."
Right away.
Right away. And in those days, of course, there were no mobile phones, but we
Correct.
didn't even have a phone at home. So I was not able to inform home that, I'm going to work.
Oh.
So I started off my day with going to my first job.
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. I just put my heart and soul into that job, passionately, working with, again, a single-minded focus. I had to do my CA. Yeah,
Chartered accountant.
Chartered Accountancy. I finished my CA, and then I got an opportunity in Mumbai with a company at that time, fairly unknown at that point of time, called Arthur Andersen.
Okay.
Yeah.
When was it?
That was in 88, early 88. So I left home for the first time after boarding school, of course. First time I left home, joined Arthur Andersen in Bombay. Difficult life once you're used to living at home, to...
In the comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. To get into a 123 bus to go to
Hutatma Chowk.
Hutatma Chowk and Cuff Parade, that's right. It was a very difficult challenge. But I enjoyed the work out there. I was, again, given a lot of opportunity. And as is my way of working, I just take all opportunities that are thrown at me. However much pressure there is or whatever there is, I just take that opportunity. I make the most of it. And that also allowed me to work with teams that were equally, if not more, capable and competent. Great people to work with. And also mentoring a lot of those people. So that was my first go at mentoring people, bringing them up in life. And, automatically, as you grow in life, everyone else grows with you.
Yeah.
But people forget that unless someone is ready to take on the work that you're doing, you can't move to the next level. And that's another lesson in life that I learned very early on.
That you have to move ahead.
And that you got to get the right people to take on the work that you're doing, so that you can move on to doing something else.
Right.
Yeah.
So, around this, I see a lot of corporate leaders whenever I speak and whenever I deliver my programs, and I ask them, saying that, hey, your skills are replaceable. Yeah. You need to ensure that you're grooming people down the line and then move up to the next level. Often we feel a lot of resistance, fear, insecurity, etc. People are laden with. They're laden with a lot of comfort, and they refuse to come out of those comfort zones. I'm sure you must have encountered such experiences with some of the team members, or some of them might have experienced it with you as well.
Absolutely. As far as your own knowledge is concerned, let's start with oneself. You've got to make sure that you're upgrading and updating your knowledge on a continuous basis, because the world is almost doubling its knowledge every 5 years. And you've got to ask yourself, have I done the same? Have I also upgraded myself? Because the world is full of redundant people otherwise.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can't just stay in one place with the same kind of knowledge and expect to succeed. You have to keep changing. You have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And it's very well said, change is the only constant.
Yeah.
You've got to be flexible. You've got to want to make that effort to change. And you've got to lead others into that change.
Leading others into that change often is mistaken as a position, but it's more of a behavior.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And whenever you're leading people, whenever you are, ensuring that people are upskilling themselves, you upskilling yourself, and then you come across completely different generations, where you find that the expectations are completely different. Value systems are ways different than what you might have experienced during your first or second job. But then how do you deal with such pressures?
Sometimes you get asked this question when someone new joins, why have you come to take this job? And the person says, I want to learn the tricks of the trade. And my response always is, learn the trade.
Tricks will come automatically.
You will learn everything else later, but first learn the trade. Everyone wants that shortcut approach to success.
Right.
And success is never achieved overnight.
True.
It takes a lot of hard work. And again, very well said, 99% perspiration and inspiration.
Absolutely.
So that's really a very important aspect that one needs to consider. A lot of today's youth want quick success. They want to move up the ladder very fast. The patience to actually understand what they're doing, replicate what they're doing multiple times so that they become experts in their field, rather than just a jack of all trades. And I keep giving them this example that, say you take the medical profession today. It's become so super specialized, so focused in terms of the specialties that each person has to imbibe from, that today a person cannot be doing everything. Each one chooses a path they want to choose and then follow it and succeed in that and become a specialist in that. Because people on the other side want to come to meet a specialist, not a generalist.
Having said that, that brings me to the second part of it. People would definitely want specialists and they go there for the guidance. But as you move up the ladder, you need to be more of a generalist, isn't it? You need to understand how different functions are
Correct.
interdependent in an organization and then how they really are. And this is where a lot of people put up strong resistance of sharing and holding information. They have that fear of being open if there's transparency in the organization. And you've been handling the nerve center of this information called finance. So often financial data and understanding the financial data, etc., has been a challenge for most of the other functions. And wherever there are huge numbers, it comes with huge responsibilities. And those responsibilities are not something that everybody is accustomed to. How do you really handle ensuring that there are governance areas being addressed, ethics and code of conduct is in place, and then you see that there's somebody who's an outperformer, but he does not comply with the ethical standards?
So to start with, as far as ethics is concerned, as far as compliance is concerned, in my view, it's not negotiable. It has to be. That's table stakes.
It's like hygiene of the food.
That's table stakes.
All right.
You cannot succeed unless that is there in every single person, right? So that's not even something that you want to tell someone that you can do something about it or change about it. That comes without any negotiation.
Have you come across situations where you spotted something great? Because I see that you've been into audit forensics as well, and you spot some gray areas and then you go a little detail into it, and then you've been like, this is why people actually do what they should not be doing. How can we address the greed or fear, insecurity, and all these emotions that come with it?
So it's about putting in, for every organization, it's about putting in the right checks and balances in place. You always have to cater for that one black sheep that will be there or that could be there. So you've got to make sure that the right checks and balances are there, and you've got to make sure that the right people are looking at those checks and balances to see that the compliance is, happening on an ongoing basis. A slip up in compliance can tarnish the reputation of the organization, can tarnish the brand of the organization, and more importantly, it can tarnish the reputation of the person who's actually doing that work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's very important that you have those right checks and balances. And yes, you do get a lot of situations where people have tried their best to circumvent rules, and then you've got to take the hard call and ask them to go. There is no negotiation on that. Okay. If someone is flouting the rules, if someone is flouting the norms, that cannot be a part of your organization. And it's very important as a leader that you are seen to be doing the right thing as well.
Leading by example, and not
more than leading by example. It's about making sure that if the governance rules in place are that someone who does something wrong has to go, then you make sure that person goes.
All right. I'm sure you must have come across people like this, where you had to take a tough stance, despite of the fact that all other areas, I mean, he's being useful for the organization or other functions probably said that he's too important, and then you've taken a stance for yourself saying that this is not negotiable.
Absolutely.
And then you might have faced the music for it.
See, you always have to understand that there will always be an initial hiccup in terms of the loss of a valuable resource. But in the long run, you've done the right thing for the organization. And when you've done the right thing for the organization, all else falls apart, falls to the sideways.
The bitter pill has to be swallowed in any case, because the patient needs it.
Absolutely.
All right. And then, post Arthur Andersen, how has been your journey?
So post Andersen, I came back to Pune. I joined Cummins, Kirloskar Cummins in those days.
Right.
I joined as the head of internal audit. And within a year, I moved to the Poonawalla group. The group that comprises Serum Institute, Silol Hindustan, as those days. It used to be called Silol, now it's Eagle Bergman, and various other group companies. I was there for 5 years. I was also based in the Singapore and Dubai offices.
Right.
And then came about 5 years later, I moved to another role in Dubai with another organization, another Big Four firm. Was based in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. Then went with that organization to Singapore. Again, spent a bit of time in Singapore. And then my old colleague in Andersen caught up with me one day in Singapore and said, why don't you come back to India? India is shining now. So I came and joined this company called RSM at that time.
Right.
Was with them for 3 years, then moved to Deloitte. And 20 years with Deloitte until I took early retirement earlier this year.
Awesome.
But it's been a brilliant journey as far as Deloitte was concerned. Again, I started off with zero revenue and 0 people, and just built business. With the internal audit business that I started off. I was then made the Asia Pacific head for internal audit, and then finally moved on to a global role as one of the 3 global leads for internal audit for Deloitte. I did about 12 years in that role, and then I was looking at doing something different. Then came along this opportunity to run the CFO program for India, and so I ran the CFO program for India, which meant connecting up with the top 200 CFOs in the country. And again, in that role, I also became the Asia Pacific leader for the CFO program.
Oh, okay.
That was one thing that I also took on the role of the consumer leader for India for Deloitte, which meant consumer industry, retail, automotive, travel, leisure, hospitality, the entire works. And that was again a difficult role, because it was I took on that role and COVID happened.
Okay.
And in COVID also we succeeded significantly in that industry. So that was very satisfying. I had a wonderful team that worked with me. Very, very committed, very, very focused. And it was a very unique experience, because it was the first time you're working on a laptop.
Okay.
Because it's all work from home, right? And very, very different to actually meeting people. I mean, for almost a year, we were cut off from just meeting
everything.
people.
Yeah.
And even travel from Mumbai to Pune was extremely restricted, because you only had to travel if you had a pass to travel. Post that, I did a lot of facilitation for the firm, various labs that we run for the CXO program, including the CFO, the CEO program. Number of labs that we ran, and then, like I said, took early retirement in March this year.
Porus, you've been all through in finance industry, where again we always say that there are 3 emotions which run very, very high: fear, greed, and uncertainty. So what's your take, and how you have been able to address these 3 emotions, especially when you have been into auditing, forensics?
Okay, so the good news is, as far as auditing is concerned, when you look at the finance aspects, the three aspects that you mentioned of fear, greed, and uncertainty, obviously will always be there in terms of have you missed anything, or something like that, as well as the economic environment that you're working in, where there is uncertainty of businesses succeeding.
Yeah.
And we went through two phases in there. One was the subprime crisis in 2008, 2009.
Correct.
And then, of course, COVID, and that had its own different perspective on uncertainty.
Right.
Because we always thought that technology would be the cause of disruption of business, but this time it was
something else,
something completely different. Actually, technology was working very effectively, and thanks to technology working effectively, we could actually operate from home.
True.
So that was a very unique situation to be in. As far as fear and greed is concerned, when you look at any issue that is related to financial fraud, there is always a combination of greed and
fear.
Greed and the fear of being caught out. Yeah. So it comes from that, and then you basically learn to identify issues like that. We've got a separate forensic team that works in Deloitte, which actually is highly skilled at finding out these things. But when we were in our earlier years in audit, we used to do that ourselves. I mean, we used to figure out how we could actually look and evaluate and analyze any kind of such forensic requirement.
What have been some of the most you've handled APAC, you've been in Middle East, you've worked in Singapore, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and so on and so forth. All through there have been cultural differences.
Yes.
In terms of work, in terms of understanding the business, in terms of understanding the people. And it's always said that a leader is as good as his team. And I'm sure you must have been given various responsibilities to turn around these teams, which largely, as you rightly said, from zero to building the business. Okay. At that point of time, people would be overworked, would have emotional outbursts, would have very difficult view of, or not so optimistic view of business. So how did you really handle these areas?
In fairness, I must start by saying that most of the teams that we worked with were very well established teams and very skilled in their work. So the question of turning around our teams was not as acute as turning around our clients' businesses.
Okay.
And as from a consulting perspective, from an advisory perspective, that was a great sort of sense of achievement and excitement, where you could actually turn a client around from a loss-making client into a profitable client by the advice you gave them, by the way you held their hand through the tough times. That was very interesting journey. But coming back to the start of your question, which was about culture and cultural differences, I actually enjoy that challenge because I like to learn new languages. I like to speak languages, multiple languages, both Indian as well as foreign languages. And I make an effort to do that when I'm meeting and greeting someone from another country. Also, it always helps to understand their culture. For example, if you go to Japan, the Japanese culture is so different and it's so unique in its perspective that if you don't understand that culture, you'll be a misfit in there.
True.
If you're trying to work with the Japanese. Similarly, the Chinese, the Singaporeans, they have their own culture. They have their own cultural angularities, if I may say so. And understanding that and working with them is extremely important. And I'll tell you one thing, if I may call it my secret of success, it would be that I learned to work following their culture.
Adapting to it.
Rather than trying to impose my culture on them, I just worked within their system and within their culture. So, if the Japanese culture is of the bowing culture, the way you address someone with the word "san" at the end of the word, you do that because that's what they do.
That's what is acceptable to them.
That is acceptable, and that is their culture.
Right. So giving it rather than fighting for it.
Being flexible.
Being
Being
flexible.
flexible, being open, and willing to change.
Willingness
Willing to change yourself to fit into someone else's shoes.
Right. And I'm sure, there would be many tough negotiations as well.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Lots of tough negotiations and lots of cultural variations on negotiation.
Right.
So, in each culture, I mean, the way they negotiate is so different. For example, the Americans are very straight and direct. Yeah?
Yeah.
This is it, this is it.
Take it or leave it.
Pretty much. The Indian culture is of that bargaining. You start with a number, someone else starts with a number, and let's meet somewhere in the middle.
Correct.
That's the way the Indian culture works. The Japanese culture is discuss a number and then someone else comes and discusses the final figure with you. So you have already got yourself down to some extent, and then someone else tries to again chip on that number and bring it down. So each place is very different. And if you go to the Middle East, for example, it's a very different culture that you encounter out there, and a lot of it is a lot of social talk before you actually get down to business.
Setting the context right.
Well, yeah, it's not even setting the context right, but just getting to know you, getting to know your family, exchanging what I call our typically standard greetings to get to the point. Whereas the Americans will come straight to the point and say, look, this is what we are here to talk about. Let's talk and let's move.
True.
Again, understanding the chemistry of each individual person. Because when you negotiate, you're not negotiating with an organization, you're negotiating with individuals. It's always important to remember that.
It's about the person.
It's about people. And the way you can, figure out their chemistry and match your chemistry with theirs is very, very critical. Or some people may be just innovators, like pioneers. Some people may be very aggressively driving an agenda. Some people will sit back like tortoises and not say anything, but they're listening carefully.
Highly analytical.
They'll even pretend they don't understand what you're saying. Yeah, but they understand everything. And then there are some who are just people persons. Very, very congenial, very good to talk to. But then getting them to a decision point becomes a little more challenging.
True.
So you have to negotiate with different types of people. And the faster you learn that there are going to be different people, it's better for you.
Being flexible, being adaptive is what you strongly.
Correct.
And that has worked all through.
Absolutely. And also, there is of course the element of emotional intelligence involved in there, in terms of the fact that some people's culture that you see as culture, you want to make sure that you're not going to upset them or make them feel in any way bad,
inferior,
bad or something while you're having that conversation. So you have to understand that and work within that.
Being sensitive.
Being sensitive to culture, being sensitive to people.
Being mindful.
And mindful, absolutely. Absolutely being mindful of it.
Have you come across certain areas where, at some point of time where you felt that because you have not been able to understand a few things, you have let it go, and then later on there have been regrets? Any moments of regrets?
I'm sure. Plenty.
Oh.
Plenty of moments of regret. I should have done that. I didn't do it.
Correct.
I lost an opportunity. Happens. But at the same time, you also have to say, let's move on. Because you can't wallow in self-pity and say, oh, I should have done this. I would have done this. I would have made this. I would have done that. All that is extraneous.
So rumination of emotions is something that you don't really...
Just move on. Let's move on. I mean, that moment happened. You missed the opportunity. You missed the bus.
That's
Time
okay.
to move on. Time to move on.
All right. Great. So when you look at the new developments in your field in terms of the new generation, the new people coming in, and as you rightly said, let's learn the trade first. Absolutely. And leave the balance. Have you come across, I'm sure you must have come across some team members who were not as patient and as, as adaptive as others. And this is where, you feel that I need to be merit driven and I need to give somebody else a chance. And then you face the music back.
Oh, sure. I mean, there are lots of instances where you've seen this. I always keep saying there is no I in teamwork. It's about a collective team.
True.
And your team is as strongest as its weakest link.
Okay.
Yeah, your team is always as strong as its weakest link. So you've got to work, but then you don't have all stars in a team also.
Yeah.
And not everyone is a star. And you don't want a team full of stars because then they have humongous egos and, that's another disaster in its own right. So you got to make people who are not shaping up or who don't understand the team culture get into that culture. And after trying, if still it doesn't work, then I think from an organization's point of view, as well as from that person's point of view, it's best to part ways.
Okay. And parting ways would come with a lot of difficult emotion turmoil at times.
It will. And what you have to do is you have to be extremely sensitive when you have those conversations.
So it's all about the way you
It's about the way you express it. It's about the way you also communicate the point to the other person that, look, it's not just in the organization's interest, but in your interest, because if you are not going to progress, you might as well know now rather than 2 years later.
Yeah.
And then you help that person get into another role somewhere else.
Okay.
Which then brings that person coming back to you always for advice, for guidance, and you just make a friend. I mean, why would you want to just make an enemy out of someone?
Yeah.
You just make a friend out of someone by just helping them in a difficult time. And you also understand that every person who comes and has a job with you, you are actually not only looking after that person's interest, but their extended family in a sense.
Yeah.
Because they represent the family, and then you want to make sure that that person's comfortable in their area and in their next job as well.
That speaks about being empathetic, being understanding, and you have to understand first.
Absolutely.
Is what you're saying. Let's talk about some of the most difficult projects or moments that you have dealt so far. Some of the most difficult emotions. We've spoken about the childhood. We've spoken about the college days. In corporates, well, your work experience, what have been some of the most difficult moments for you to deal emotionally?
I'll give you some examples.
Sure.
Probably I think that's the best way to explain some of those. I'll call them not difficult but challenging moments.
Okay.
So I remember this when I was in my early days. We had a very, very critical project that we were working on. And we had been given a timeline to complete it. And that timeline was something that we all thought we will easily make it in. One day our boss, our managing partner, comes and tells me that, by the way, I'm going to the US next week, not the week after. So effectively your timeline is preponed by a week. And I need this report to take along with me. Well, I mean, you're planning something based on, 10, 12 hours of work, and suddenly it's been thrown to you that now it's going to be 1 week earlier. And so we had this conversation with the team, and all of them felt it was a very, very challenging ask. So I told them, look, let's put our best effort into it. And let's try and see if we can meet that deadline, and hopefully we can, achieve the objective. I think we all worked 17, 18 hours a day for that week. But we got the report ready. And in those days, of course, as you remember, it was dot matrix printers and all that. So, even printing a 75, 80 page report would take like a couple of hours.
Right.
At best. And so our boss was staying at a hotel, and he was on his way to the airport, and we had to go and drop the report at the hotel. And he had a night flight to the US. We went to the hotel and we were told he's already left for the airport. Oh God. And, that was like, after all that effort, and I had taken the whole team along with me. So after all that effort, we felt, this can't be happening. Okay. One of the team members said, I'll drive you to the airport and we will make it in time for that flight, before the flight leaves. I said, okay, but how are we going to get the boss out to collect the report? He said, let's
Give it a
get
try.
to the airport. He drove like a bat out of hell, and we got to the airport. Yeah, now I've got 4 members of the team in the car along with myself. We jumped out of the car, went to the counter, and they said, well, the flight's about to go in an hour, so I'm sure he's already gone through immigration. Oh, what do we do? And like I said, no mobile phones in those days or way to communicate. I just requested that the person on the other side, I said, is it possible for you to just make an announcement on that side? For him, I just have to hand over this report. So he said, what is in that packet? So I said, this is just paper. I mean, this is 2 copies of a report. I'll try. He's gone through immigration, so he can't come out to collect it.
Correct.
But he came. I could see him on the other side. They made the announcement and he came. So this guy took the report and gave it to him. And he opened that packet. And I thought he's going to blast us all for, coming late or whatever. And he said, only one thing. He said, one line. He said, I knew you would come and deliver this report.
Wow. So
you can imagine the impact on the team. All of us were like little down in the dumps actually, because we couldn't meet that timeline, the curtailed timeline. And then when you get to the airport and you hear that, just that one, I knew that confidence of you will deliver the report to us was, I think,
trust in the team.
That made the day.
Wow.
And made the day. And I could see the complete relief and exhaustion on the team members.
I can visualize, as you say.
Yeah.
You're describing it in such a beautiful manner. I can actually visualize all the moments here.
Because all of us are thinking there's going to be a completely different conversation that we're going to encounter.
Right.
And then just that one sentence just
awesome.
Changed the whole scenario.
And some of the most trying moments.
Trying as in difficult?
Difficult. Where the impact was not so good, but then you had to accept it as.
Oh yeah, I mean, it happened to a team that was working on a project. I remember that because we were a small office at that point of time. So I remember this very clearly. They had gone, and it was a mega project that we were working on. The team, I wasn't part of that project. But I could see those guys working day and night to get those reports, and it had lots of analytics and analysis done. And they went to the client meeting early morning. I won't mention the name of the client because that won't be appropriate. Fine. But in 20 minutes, they were back in the office. And, everyone asked, like, such a high-profile, high-pressure meeting. Everyone's come back in 20 minutes and all of them are looking, with their heads to the ground. Something has gone wrong. And we found out that the client just threw the report out. Now, imagine the impact on those guys who actually worked on that report. To have a client just fling a report back to you and say, this is rubbish. I'm not sure how much time they must have even had to read it to be able to make that statement, but they just flung it back. So that was a good learning that never go underprepared or, in a sense of overconfidence that you've done the best thing that, you can do, because a client can always have a different perspective. Another classic scenario I remember, and this happened to me. We had to make a presentation in Hyderabad. I remember that. And it was, typically Bombay, Hyderabad, early morning flight. So you go to the airport at 4:30 in the morning. Your flight is at 6 and then you land up there. There are 2 of us. So me and my colleague went from Mumbai, and then we had our colleagues from Hyderabad joining us for that meeting. So we reached Hyderabad, went to the meeting, and we saw the client CFO come out and say, "Hey, what are you doing here?" So we said, we've come for the presentation. Oh, didn't the CEO tell you that he's not going to be able to make it today? I said, no. Oh, he told me, I'm so sorry, I must have forgotten to send you that message then.
My God.
And in my mind, I'm thinking, man, you made us come all the way here to tell us that there's no meeting. But I just kept quiet. I said, what's the reason? But why couldn't he make it to me? He had a health problem at home. His kid was not well, so he had to rush to the hospital. I said, okay, fair enough. He says, I'm so sorry, and he apologized. But I said, oh, that's fine. Please tell him that we wish the kid gets well soon, and we'll catch the flight back and go back. No. Now that you're here, why don't you stay? I said, we'll come back again. When we came back again, the first thing we did was to ask him how his child was, and he said, "Oh, much better. I'm really very sorry I missed out on that meeting." And I think just that one conversation, that piece of empathizing with the client, that we understand that you had a challenge, and it's okay. We came all the way and we went back. We won the work.
Fantastic. It's always about connecting with the people first.
Connecting with the people and walking in their shoes. Looking at it from someone else's perspective rather than your own self-perspective.
Absolutely.
It's the most important thing. It's the most important message I try to give people. Always try and see how someone else is feeling about it. Put your own self-interest back and put the other person's interest forward.
Putting other person's interest forward. You've also been in finance, and a lot of companies these days that you see, who seek funding, talk about valuation which is not justifiable, and it's a crazy game where you talk about quick commerce making millions, billions, because you really wonder, is that what valuation is all about? So when, this is all about, again, those two emotions that I would come back to, greed and fear, right?
Yeah.
When I'm sure you must have had such examples where somebody is pitching in and you really validated, saying that this cannot be the right method, or this cannot be the right thing
I've
I'm looking
seen
at.
a lot of the IPOs coming out of late, and the way they are tanking after the initial euphoria clearly leads us to believe that most of these are overvalued companies. Having said that, there are also some really good companies who deserve the kind of valuations they've got. But with startups, I mean, it's a different game. It's not about how much money they're making, but it's about the number of customers they have, and valuation works on various other aspects. So yeah, it's a bit of both. But you're right. I mean, everyone again wants to get into that quick buck.
FOMO as well.
It's about fear of missing out, of course.
Right.
Of course. You don't want to be the guy who's
left out.
Who missed the bus. Yeah.
Correct. Great. So when you look ahead now in various challenging environments that people face in, what are some of the key observations in terms of the emotional moments in the office that you just described a couple of them, where in one you felt euphoric after a sense of achievement was there, and the second where you empathized and you won the client back. It's always said that business is about numbers, but at the same time business is about the people who are working for those numbers.
True. So there have been a lot of moments like that. When you take the office setup, for example, if you find someone who's looking a little down, looking a little
upset,
just it's the best thing that you can do is just go and say, is there anything that's bothering you that I can help you with? Some people prefer not to open up and keep it to themselves, and then you leave them with that note saying that, look, at any point of time you want to share, my door is open for you.
Fantastic.
Come over anytime. Yeah, because I notice that you're looking a little down. If it's something that's bothering you, if it's something that I can help you with, if it's something that someone here can help you with, let us know.
Great.
And then there are some who will open up and say, look, I've got this problem. And then you empathize with them. You look at it from their point of view. I remember there was a situation where somebody had to, wanted to take leave, and they were working on a deadline project. And that leave, in my view, I figured it was really genuine. That person had to go home that day. Just go home. Now, what about the project? It'll suffer. So don't worry. You go home.
Yeah, I mean, address those changed priorities are more important at times.
And that builds loyalty, that builds trust, that builds respect, which goes a long way in life. I mean, when you talk about people, and our asset in professional services is people.
Yeah,
that's your single asset. And you take care of your people will die for you.
another example that I recently we've come across a story. A few months back, there was somebody in the Big Four who kind of died because of a heart attack, overworked at places. In my opinion, it's not about the overwork, but probably the emotions which are becoming toxic in that work culture. And then
I know the case you're talking about, so right. I'd rather not get into too many specifics out there.
Right.
But yes, I agree that the work environment has to be something that people should be conscious about. And you certainly can't have people who are, getting so stressed out that they are giving up their life for that. But having said that, in a number of instances of late, we've been seeing fit people running on Marine Drive and just falling down dead.
Oh yeah.
So it's happening on both sides. It's one side you say you're stressed, and the other side someone's working on their fitness and just popping off. So I guess you see both sides of the coin. Clearly, in my view, hard work is important. But again, everyone has their limits. Everyone has their capacity in which they can optimally produce output. You've got to, as a manager, as a leader, understand what those different nuances are for different people and work accordingly.
Adaptability here as well.
Adaptability to different people also. It's
right.
not just the team, but individual people in that team, because each one has their own capacity to deliver output.
Right. Often people express disappointments over the numbers when such high-end board meetings happen, and they do not realize the amount of hard work that has gone in terms of even bringing the best out of it. Of course, at the end of the day, everybody has to meet the numbers. Having said that, I'm sure you must have encountered where people are totally disconnected from the reality and they say, this is not achieved and you guys are underperforming.
Yeah.
Whereas the fact is the person is already stressed out, he is doing his best, but he's not still finding the way out. So how do you deal with such places?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, there are many people who would just look at the numbers and say, we've done well or we haven't done well. As simple as that. But also try and do a little bit of a deep dive into that. Why have we not done well?
The circumstances.
Why have we not done well? Is it just the fault of the person you're pointing a finger at, or is it the collective fault of a larger group of individuals, all of which add up to making that number possible? And yes, if someone is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, talk to them, have a conversation with them. And as per normal protocol, you give them a second chance or a third chance. And then, well, if they still just continue to wither away, then yeah.
So feedback mechanism is
often... Feedback, Pratik, you brought about the right term. Feedback is extremely important, and actually good emotional leaders, in my view, do two things. They learn how to give feedback. They also learn how to take feedback.
Absolutely.
And that's very important. So when they give feedback, you have to be very empathetic and understand each individual and the ability to receive that feedback from that individual's point of view. Yeah, each one has their own threshold of taking it. And learn the subtleties of how to communicate with that person, yet give the feedback directly. I'm a firm believer, when you give feedback, talk straight.
Yeah.
Don't
beat around the
bush. Because then that person doesn't get the message they're supposed to be getting. On the contrary, on the flip side, when you're receiving feedback, make it a point, even as a leader, to get the right kind of feedback. Get your peers to give you feedback. And build in a sort of a board of peers, if I may say so, a loosely worded term, but a group of peers who can give you that kind of feedback that you want, and the kind of feedback that you may not want to hear.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you ask someone for feedback, they'll tell you what you want to hear, just off the cuff. But when you say, I want to hear the message that I should do something about, then that's the kind of feedback you want. And then do something about that feedback. To me, it's very important that not only you get feedback or give feedback, but somebody who's receiving it, as well as you who are getting it, act on it.
Great. And often we see that, feedback giving, receiving session ends up either in a blame game or with a lot of bad taste.
True.
Right?
Happens.
And when such things happen, when people are emotionally charged up and they do not distinguish between feedback and personal criticism, or personalize everything rather than looking at it in a dispassionate or emotional neutral manner, how do you make sure that the message is driven well?
True. So firstly, don't criticize. And if you have to give negative feedback, do it in private, not in a group. Yeah. If you want to admonish someone, you say it in private. If you want to praise someone, say it in a group.
Yeah.
So sit the person down, and yes, there will always be someone who is expecting that they're the
take it as a blame game.
Yeah, they're the star performers of the universe, and those are the guys you've got to handle the most carefully, because for them anything other than their expectation is below expectation. And you have to make them understand that, look, there were certain parameters that were set before we started the year, goals as we call it, and these are the goals you've met, these are the goals you've fallen short of. Let me know how you performed against these goals yourself, where you fall short of them, and what do you plan to do to improve on them, enhance them. The first reaction will always be a defensive reaction. Or blame game. No, I did this, but the other person didn't do this, so therefore I couldn't achieve my goals, or whatever. It happens. Learn to take that in part of your stride, but don't react adversely to it, because two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
If two people start clashing with each other, that's the end of the conversation, as far as I'm concerned. And if you feel that you want to just step back because the conversation is just not going anywhere, step back and say, let's have a conversation tomorrow when we are both thinking more rationally.
So neutralizing it is more important.
You have to. You can't attack the person who's receiving that feedback, because that's a zero-sum game. You're not going to win, they are not going to win. So it's not going to get you anywhere.
Great. These are some of the most important insights that we've got. Now, when you look at overall emotional journey, okay, you've also explained about the difficult moments, challenging moments, and how you came out of it. Certain moments that you're really happy about, or that is something that you take it as a sense of achievement so far and really makes you feel happy. Apart from playing the piano, which I know.
No, I don't play the piano. I play the guitar. But
you play the guitar.
That's another thing.
Right.
That definitely makes me happy.
Right.
I tell you, in Wadia College, for one thing, something that made me really happy, we have an award at the end of your college career. That is when you're in TY/BCom, called the best student of the college, the best nest boy. And I was awarded that.
Wow.
And when I went to receive the award, our principal who was there said, he actually stopped and said, I want to share something with you, to the audience, he said.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, in the first time in our history of this college, both a father and a son have received this award.
Oh, wow.
And I was in the audience when his father got this award.
Oh.
So that made me very proud. That made me very, very happy.
I can sense that with the emotions that you are really speaking about. It indeed is great, and great sense of achievement with that it has come.
Then again, achievements, you take achievements in your stride, because there is a lot of things that have not worked also that you take in your stride.
Correct.
But that one instance I remember very, very clearly, because that meant a lot to me.
It still does.
Yeah, it still does.
Great. And anything that you feel that now you need to really look ahead for, things that would drive you now,
See,
apart from guitar, of course.
it's so whenever I used to speak at the Institute of Chartered Accountant forums, my objective was always to give back to
The
the
ecosystem.
institute that has given me something very, very important to me, the education.
Mhm.
And I've always believed that giving back knowledge doesn't make you a smaller person. It actually enhances your status. It makes you a bigger person. People hold back sometimes, saying that, if I gave out this knowledge, then who'd come to me?
Oh, yeah.
I actually look at it in the reverse, that if you gave that knowledge, people will still seek your advice because they know that that's where the more and more knowledge is going to come from. So it really works very well from that perspective.
Give more,
Give more.
gain more.
Give more and gain satisfaction also.
That's what I'm saying.
You get a lot of satisfaction in
Yeah.
seeing someone else succeed, in seeing someone
Absolutely.
else come up, and yeah.
Awesome. So, on that note, we definitely conclude on this beautiful journey that you have described, n number of instances, etc. And it indeed was a pleasure having you here
Thank you
and
so
talking
much.
to you, as it has always been that way. All right.
Absolutely. Pleasure,
Thank you.
Pratik. Thank
Pleasure.
you so much.
And we now would go ahead with a tradition, which is signing the mugs.
Okay, sure.
One mug, you will sign it for us, and the second one, I'll sign it for you.
All right.
And it has got both of our faces on.
I just noticed that.
Right. That's for you.
Smudge the signature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely.
And now it's your turn. There you go. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It indeed was a pleasure, and it was long awaited.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
wishing you real good health
Thank
coming
you.
up.
Thank you.